Hey, this is Leif Ganford. I played the cash register thief in The Amazing Spider-Man, and you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, this is Rich McDonald, and I play Commander David Mason on Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And you're listening to Everything Geek podcast.
Hello, I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldabar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek Podcast.
Your attention, masters, mistresses. All systems functional for the Everything Geek Podcast.
Hey, it's James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi and
Master Plo Koon
in Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Everything Geek, the podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek podcast.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast. I'm your host Ruari, and joining me today is a very special guest. We have actor Robin Morgan, who played Turk Barrett in the Daredevil series, Joshua Carpenter in Believe, Lomatic in Full Circle, Sock in Pariah, and Shuffman Curtis in the inevitable defeat of Mr. and Pete. Rob, how are you?
God is great. I can't complain. Thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you join us today on the podcast.
It's a pleasure that you even consider me somebody to interview for the podcast, so thank you.
You're very welcome. So getting right into my questions for you, Rob, my first question is, how did you decide you wanted to become an actor?
How did I decide I wanted to become an actor? Really, it kind of happened just by, it just happened, I always came up entertaining. I was a break dancer in the streets coming up. We used to break dance for money and stuff. So, I had the showmanship. I was the class clown. I loved making people laugh. I loved laughing. So my mother would always say, you out here getting in all this trouble acting, at least you should get paid for it, And she would say that, but it never connected until I was at Virginia State University, and I was a radio host for WVST 91.3. That's the college I went to at HBCU. And so I got a chance to have a voice and become a figure in the community and become comfortable with people knowing me and recognizing me and stuff like that in college. And then after college, I pursued radio. But radio is a vicious game, just like acting is, but radio is a very vicious game at the same time. And I felt like I was getting jerked around looking for radio work in D.C. So I figured, you know what, if I'm going to get jerked around, I might as well go to New York City and get jerked around. And while I was in New York, I was auditioning for this movie called Shaft that John Singleton did, a remake. And I had actually booked it from 2,500 guys lined up around this Harlem block. And I wound up being the guy in the room with John Singleton, fresh off the streets, no training, no nothing. So unfortunately, MGM didn't want to go through with the deal because they didn't want to put that kind of money to a no-name. But that was really John Singleton's stick at the time, was bringing out no-name actors. So once that fell through, I was pretty much in New York City, flying by the seat of my pants and just going for a dream because I caught the bug then. I saw myself on screen a couple times in this film called Contact with Jodie Foster. That was my very first job. And they happened to put me on screen as a background extra. And when I saw myself on screen, it was like the first time I ate an orange. I was just hooked. I loved it. I wanted to eat it again.
It's a really interesting and in-depth answer. You've had a very long life already, that's for sure. Street dancer, radio host, and then that, extra thing as well. I mean, it must have felt pretty surreal seeing yourself on screen for the first time.
For the first time seeing myself on screen, it was funny because, I did this background extra job for Contact with Jodie Foster and Matt McConaughey. And when I was doing the job, I didn't know anything about acting. I was pretty much out there very green. But I always knew you learn more by watching and listening. That's one thing I always knew. You learn more by that. So I basically was on set listening and watching. And then I'd get tidbits about the movie. I'd hear various things about the storyline. And then one time it came time for the scene where Jodie Foster goes into the Marriott to ask President Clinton for money for her outer space expeditions. They were setting up the background for that. And I happened to just be watching and see them place a guy with long white hair, which was very interesting. And I knew it just wasn't somebody in D.C. because they shot in D.C. just walking casually with long white hair. I knew it had something to do with the scene. So after they moved him, I went and placed myself in that spot and didn't move for like 4 or 5 hours. I just stood there. I did not move because I knew that's where the camera was going to be. And I wanted to get some screen time because I wanted my mom to see me on screen. So I didn't move. And eventually 4 or 5 hours later, they started dressing the set. And when I say dressing the set, they started placing the other background extras around me. And then, lo and behold, the guy with the long white hair pops up right beside me. And it was Jake Busey, Gary Busey's son. And so they were saying, okay, background, this is the scene where, Jodie goes in and she's asking for money from the president for her outer space expeditions. Me, practically growing up in Southeast Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia area, I asked myself, how would I feel if this was going on? And this is just me being green, just having fun on set, listening and watching it. Just so happened to ask myself, how would I feel? So when they said, all right, background, we need you to, first couple takes, don't make no noise, just mine, just mine. I said, cool. Then background, this take, you can actually make noise, right? So when they said you can make noise, I said, wow, I'm going to say how I would really feel, right? So I started screaming at Jodie. I started saying, get a real job. There's nothing out of space. You're wasting my tax dollar. While everybody else was just going, yeah. They were just making inaudible noises. But myself, I kind of stuck to those lines, and I just kept saying the same lines. And then Jake Busey looks at me. He says, hey, you're creative. I said, hey, man, I'm just trying to get some burn, right? And then next thing you know, I look up, and it's a microphone hanging over my head. And that's when I was like, okay, it's on and popping, right? So after we shoot the scene, I go over there, and I'm so green. I just walk right over to the where the Robert Zemeckis was, the director and stuff, looking at the playbacks. I'm just looking at the playbacks with him, like standing right beside him, And he looks up at me, and I look down at him because they was playing back the part that I was in, and I saw my face. And man, when I saw them looking at that playback on set of me out there, it just hit. It just put a real big like hunger, drive, a vision for me in my mind. And then when I went to the theater to see the movie, I went by myself, because I didn't know what to expect. And I'm sitting down and I'm watching the movie, and next thing you know, I hear my voice. And then I see my face. And then I see my voice and my face. And I just jump out the seat. I jump out the seat and damn near hit the ceiling of the theater. And then I sat back down real quick because I was like, oh, my God, I didn't want to make a big scene. And from there, I was just like, I was hooked, man. It was like drugs. I got to have that. That's what I got to do, nothing else. And off to New York City I there and pursuing it. I took a break in the music industry for a minute. I used to manage artists, and I used to intern at Bad Boy and stuff like that. But, the music industry wasn't my stick. It didn't work for me. I'm too on my own, too. I like being an individual. So I dropped that and just continued to pursue my acting. Boom. And to pursue my acting, I knew I had to survive, so I got a job. And by the grace of God, I was working at Bear Stearns in investment banking, doing equity research for 8 years while I was pursuing my acting career. Because you got to have a way of sustaining yourself while you pursue your passion until your passion overtakes your job. So, knowing that and stuff, and then when Bear Stearns went under in 2008, August 2008, I just said, I'm not a cubicle guy. I'm not an office setting guy. I'm not a shirt and tie guy unless it's for a role, and I'm not a security guard. I'm not a waitress. I'm not a concierge guy. I'm an actor. And then I just stuck with that. And here we are getting interviewed by Ruari.
Yep, that definitely brings you full circle to the present day, all right?
Full Circle, which is a film I'm in on Netflix. Yes, Full Circle, man. Check it out.
Yeah, I'll be sure to do so. So, getting into my second question for you, Rob, how were you originally cast as Turk Barrett in the Daredevil series?
How was I originally cast as Turk Barrett in Daredevil? Man, my agent hits me with the audition. I'm thankful to get any auditions because actually I don't audition that much, unfortunately. I know I'm just as shocked as you, but I don't really get that many auditions. So when I get an audition, I get excited. So I was excited, and it was called Bluff. It was called something totally different in the sides and in the subject heading for the audition. So I was like, okay, cool. But it was with casting director that I totally love, Julie Schubert. And so I was like, okay, cool. Bluff, Julie Schubert, no problem. Let's just go in and do what we do. I just idealized the circumstance of the scene that they had for me. I think the scene I had auditioned for was the scene where I'm selling the guy the gun. That was the scene I had auditioned. And, the gun that jams up on him. And I think that's episode 3. And so I just went ahead and did it. And Julie said, thank you. And I said, thank you. And I walked out. And then maybe like 4 months later, I get a call and say, hey, Rob, remember that show you auditioned for Julie Schubert? Well, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, what about it? Well, they want you. Cool. And it's actually Daredevil, huh? Okay, I didn't know that, so, yeah, that's how it went down, man. Then I went in there and did what I did.
It's really, really interesting, and especially because, not only because you said you don't actually do that many auditions, but because in your audition scene it was from the 3rd episode. That's actually interesting because you were in the 1st episode as well, and the audition.
Yeah, I was in the very first 5 minutes. Yeah, so yeah, that is interesting. The scene was, I believe, from episode 3 at audition. Yeah. This stuff is programmed, man. They know what they're gonna do months ahead of time.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to my third question: what were your favorite memories from working on the 1st season of Daredevil, if you can think of any?
My favorite memories of working on the 1st season of Daredevil is, Rob, you got the job. That's the very first one. That's my favorite. Anytime you get the job, right? After that, it's meeting the fresh and talented and dedicated people involved with making the show. Just meeting various people that are just as excited about making Daredevil because, as you know, Daredevil, the comic book world, Marvel itself has a very dedicated, thirsty, / critical fan base. And, the excitement on working on something for that type of market is just beautiful, and especially when you get that kind of feedback that we got, and then after that, it will probably be the funnest scene for me was jumping over the car, man. The slow motion scene in episode, I want to say 11 or 13, the slow motion where they put the opera when I get caught. So that was very fun to shoot because I like doing action and stunts, They didn't want me to do it, but I was like, I can do that. I can jump over the hood of the car. It's no problem. And he's like, no, Rob, we got somebody for you. And I just went and jumped over it. And they're like, okay, Rob, cool. Back to one. Let's go. Rob's going to jump over the hood. So that was fun.
Yeah, it certainly sounds. I know a lot of actors like yourself, I guess, prefer to do their stunts themselves and not rely on a stunt double. So it's really interesting that you did that stunt by yourself.
Yeah, man. I had a great stunt guy named Guy Silvera. Guy was great, but I still like getting involved in. I like doing the stuff too. I like doing the action too.
Yeah.
As much as I can.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to my fourth.
I have so much respect for the stunt guys, man. I got so much respect for the stunt guys because that shit is not easy, especially getting in that harness because the harness is not friendly to your crotch, to your friend.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I often feel sometimes that like stunt doubles get underrated. So yeah,
Yes. And my man is Philip Silvera is the head stunt guy and fight coordinator on the show, and I just want to shout out that whole stunt fight team, man. They're awesome.
That's great, and they definitely did a great job in the first season of Daredevil, that's for sure.
Yeah, they did.
So, moving on to my fourth question for you. The last we see of Turk Barrett in the first season of Daredevil is him being arrested. If it was up to you, what would you have liked to have seen the writers do with the character following his arrest?
What would I like to see them do with Turk Barrett following his arrest? Man, I'm a dreamer, man. I'd love to see the humanity side of Turk Barrett. The great showrunner Stephen DeKnight, he actually said he'd like to see a Turk Barrett series in itself, and I agree. I'd love to see Turk Barrett as the family man, or as the what makes Turk vulnerable. Why does Turk hustle the way he hustles? For who does he hustle for? How does he spend his time? What makes him laugh? What is he in love with? Who is he in love with? I'd like to see Turk Barrett in his living room, if you ask me. And I like to see Turk Barrett whip a little ass every now and then too, But whatever the writer decides, whatever Marvel decides, it's beautiful, man. Just to be a part of the world is a blessing.
I'll go on record and say I would definitely watch a series just on Turk Barrett.
Thank you.
maybe not one that only has him in his living room, but
yeah, exactly.
No,
but
I would definitely watch it though.
Let's campaign for that. Let's campaign to get Turk his own series, man. Get Stephen DeKnight behind it with us.
Yeah,
help us out.
We should.
Who's an awesome guy.
Yeah, we should start a hashtag going on Twitter about it, so yeah, that might help.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, moving on to my fifth question, Rob. Following on from the previous question, a comic has been released which has Turk escape jail and get beaten up by Daredevil again following the events of the first season. Have you heard of this comic before, or is this the first you've heard of it?
I haven't heard of that. But I'm I like the sound of it, but I haven't heard of that. So you're saying Turk Barrett is more than likely going to be in like what? Season 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 or something?
Let's keep our fingers crossed. I mean, the more work for you, the better. So let's just put it like that.
Exactly, man. The more work for me, the better. I like those. That's it for me too.
Yeah. Moving on to my next question. Can we expect to see Turk Barrett in other Marvel shows on Netflix, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, etc.?
Okay. I can't, foretell what the guys in the writing room are doing. If it was up to me, man, I would work every episode of Marvel. I'd work every episode of Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Luke Cage. I'd work all of them, but I just got to show up prepared when they call me. And they're very strict about what I can say, but I can say for the Luke Cage, I saw that I was announced on IMDb, so somebody must have said something for Luke Cage.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting, right?
Yeah, I don't think they've even started filming that show, and I'm guessing you didn't know anything about it before you saw it on IMDb.
Yeah, I'm like Ruari. I'm just as surprised as you, man. If they announced it on IMDb, now I'm just waiting for the call so I could just be like, cool, let's do it.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed you will be in Luke Cage then.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
My final question for you, Rob, is do you have any upcoming acting roles or any other projects you would like to talk about?
Right now, I'm in Atlanta working on another Netflix original series called Stranger Things. Having a great time. It's a show conceived by the Duffer brothers, Matt and Ross Duffer, some great guys out of North Carolina. I'm working alongside with David Harbour, great guy, great talent, and Winona Ryder, great lady, great talent. And yeah, man, I'm working this, and then hopefully after this, as an actor, our work is always looking for work. That's our main work. If I'm not looking for work, then I'm cheating myself out of work. So right after this show, Stranger Things, I think I'm gonna be out here until like on and off till February. I'm right back looking for work. Even while I'm here, I texted my manager today about some projects a casting director is working on that, I'm familiar with. So, like, that's my way of looking for work. You know what I mean, Ruari? I wish I could tell you more, man. I wish I had a lot of exciting things to share, but I do have some stuff as far as Full Circle. It's on Netflix. It's a feature film. That's another character of me. I think you would enjoy. It's already work done, but check that out. I think you'd dig it. But as far as what I'm working on, I'm just working on this show Stranger Things right now.
It's really interesting, so I'll be sure to keep an eye out for that feature film and, of course, Stranger Things, as you mentioned. So that's all. That's all of my questions for you today, Rob. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Ruari.
And hopefully we can.
It's been my pleasure.
And hopefully we can talk to you again at some point.
Of course, yeah. Let me know. I mean, I appreciate the love, man.
Yeah, so I'll talk to you again soon then. Bye, and thanks again for joining us.
Okay.
So talk to you soon.
Sounds good, Ruari. Thank you very much, man. Welcome. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being considered as somebody you'd want to even interview.
Make sure to check out our podcast links. Check out our website.everythinggeekpodcast.com/EGP. Check out our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast. Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/everythinggeekp. Check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/official everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our Mixcloud profile, www.mixcloud.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Email us at the below email, everythinggeekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our companion podcast, Everything Geek Comiccast, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekcomiccast. Make sure to check out the hosts' YouTube channels. Mine is www.youtube.com/user/Septimus Destroyers. Check out Robert Morgan on Twitter, twitter.com/shadowflat. And check out Channel 1 where we broadcast live from, www.channel1create.com. So geeks out, everyone.